Hi, welcome to another TeamSense Tuesday webinar. My name is Caroline Rizzo, and today I have the honor of moderating today's panel discussion as we wrap Women's History Month. Today's discussion is particularly meaningful as we explore the experiences and insights of women who have made significant contributions to the manufacturing and tech industries. Our esteemed panelists bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise, and I'm so excited to introduce you to them shortly. But first, let's cover a few housekeeping items. So as always, and especially during this webinar, questions are encouraged throughout the webinar. We ask that you place them in the Q&A panel. It's at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to them at the last section of our webinar. As you may have noticed, we are recording this webinar, and we will send out the recording via a YouTube link, and you'll get it in your email inbox if you registered for the webinar. You can always revisit the content, though, at a later date. If you want to just simply visit teamsense.com/webinars, you can take a look at all of our past webinars and anything that's upcoming. So without further ado, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Caroline Rizzo, and I'm the marketing manager at TeamSense. I'm from Austin, Texas, not quite born, but definitely raised, and my background is primarily in tech. So again, very excited to moderate today's discussion. Jessica, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? Welcome.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Caroline and Sheila, both for having me this morning. And good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Kinman. I'm currently a senior manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers, helping with digital transformation for manufacturing and engineering. I've been in industry, God, 20 years now. My first 10 was definitely hands-on manufacturing. I came up as an electrician. I've welded, I've built things, I've assembled. I got into management for a while and then got into technology and systems really excited me. I'm a mechanical engineer by education, so I was a little unique having engineering and a manufacturing background. So the last 10 years, I've spent consulting major companies globally on how to implement digital transformations and work on strategy targeting with that. I'm also a second lieutenant in the United States military. So I'm a civil engineer officer with our Washington Air National Guard here outside of Seattle. And I'm involved in a bunch of organizations. We'll talk a little bit about like women in manufacturing. And I've recently soft launched my own coaching business, the Daily Goal Setter. So I'm excited to kind of start that as another chapter. So very excited to be here and look forward to this conversation.
That's awesome. Congrats on the recent launch. That's so exciting. Awesome. Well, thanks again for being here today. Sheila, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, but before I do, Jess, beast mode, love it. I knew a lot of your background. We met in women in manufacturing and just were like two peas in a pod. Freaking killer. So thank you so much for being here. You're an inspiration to so many, and thank you for your service as well. I am Sheila Stafford. I am co-founder and CEO of TeamSense. Prior to founding TeamSense, I've got over 20 years experience in and around manufacturing. I really grew up in manufacturing. I also have a mechanical engineering degree undergrad, and then found myself as a manufacturing engineer at General Motors right after graduation. And I worked at General Motors, Whirlpool Corporation for an extended period of time. I had a really incredible experience living abroad, working in Italy in the supply chain function, and then came back over to the West Coast and worked for Fluke and Fortive, and then founded TeamSense in 2020. Super excited to be here.
Super cool. Amazing. I'm always in awe of engineering brains as a marketer myself. So love it. Super glad to have you both here today. So let's go ahead and set the stage a little bit. We're going to be talking really just in a moderated panel discussion type of format. As I mentioned, questions are encouraged, but I will be really asking a lot of really great questions for both of them. So let's kind of get a little bit more into your background. So obviously, y'all both have just such incredibly impressive backgrounds and career paths. For people early in their careers, they often question, how do I get started? And really, what should I keep in mind as my own career path progresses? I'd love to hear from both of you, and maybe Jessica, you can kick us off. How did you get your start in manufacturing, and what advice might you have for women who are just getting started?
Awesome. Yeah, great question. You kind of get into manufacturing and it's like, okay, what do I do now? Or what is it? I kind of I did it through family. My dad was at Boeing, 20 years, retired. I grew up seeing, big products built. It was really cool. They were going through a lot in developing things and products. He was in quality, so I got to hear about the manufacturing floor. I got to see it. So I definitely encourage, like, one thing out of that is realizing you don't know until you know, right? So look for opportunities to get in and see what is in manufacturing. There are so many different products, so many different organizations. A lot of times with some of my employees, they may come in as a mechanic and maybe that's not the right job for them. And educating them on, like, hey, here's supply chain, here's what that job does, here's quality. Sheila talked about manufacturing engineers. Do you know you could create plans for manufacturing? There's just so many different roles in there. So I think, as we have, any of us with kids or friends, just getting them exposed to manufacturing, I think is a really good first step. And also, as you get into manufacturing, grab those opportunities. And this is really like any career, any person. If you're starting out, I'm having my daughter's 15 going into high school. In high school, we're talking a little bit about college, and it's like, well, what does an engineer do? Or what do I do with a computer science degree? You're not limited. So even though I'm a mechanical engineer, like I've helped on electrical stuff, I'm a civil engineer in the military, right? So that's not a path I ever thought I would be on, but getting in there, jumping in, volunteering for stuff, volunteer for projects, you find out what you like and don't like, and the only way you're going to do that is by exposing yourself to the broad topic of manufacturing and not just like kind of pigeonholed. So even if you're not sure, go try it. Worst case, you go back to what you were doing before, or maybe you opened yourself and experienced something you like. So definitely volunteer, get out there, network with people, find ways to have opportunities to grab something that gets you outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, for me, it's really interesting. I also was inspired to join manufacturing from my dad. And so that's kind of a nice thread on, when we talk about like gender later on, thinking about like how you bring in, your children into the environment. My dad had 3 girls. And so I think, being a father of all girls, like early on, his gender stereotypes were thrown out the window. Like we learned how to change oil and like do all these things that would be traditional male roles. And so I kind of grew up with that. But he had a really unique role in which he was an electrician at a factory, but then to make extra money at night, he ran his own electrical business. So he would do, electrical installs for a variety, both residential and commercial. And oftentimes, like he would take me with him as his cheap labor help. But in doing so, I had a ton of experience. We went to a company called Axe Testing Labs, which their job was to basically test new toys coming in for like the consumer protection group. So they tested all the McDonald's toys. They tested like Power Wheels, and Fisher Price was local to where I grew up. And so just having that exposure and seeing, women there that are scientists, like he made a point to introduce me and get kind of this idea of I could do something like that into my head. And then the other idea that kind of inspired me was the fact that nothing is by accident. And I share that same idea with my kids today. Like, if you grab this pen, like this was designed, like the shape of this thing was all like purposefully designed, and like thought went into every single element of the physical world that we touch. And that became so fascinating for me, and just continue to kind of, that curiosity drove me into manufacturing and how things are made. The back half of Caroline's question was really like, what advice would you give to somebody just starting out? And I think, the biggest piece of advice that I got that is still really useful today, whether in manufacturing or, running a software company like I do now, is really to understand the language of business. Like, what is it that factory, that business really cares about? Are they, looking at contribution margin? Are they running, productivity goals or efficiency goals? And so first and foremost, like understand what the currency is that's being exchanged at the leadership level, kind of first and foremost. And then second is figure out like what your job is and how it impacts that currency, right? And so if your job impacts productivity, and productivity is the thing that's driving that element, like understand what your role is and how it impacts that currency. And that will unlock a ton of opportunities for you as you move forward.
I think that's really great advice. Something that I've learned along in my career as well, just in terms of being a part of different industries and different, from my experience, startups. I guess I can also attest to the fact that I have a great dad that showed me a thing or two as well, and I'm really grateful to him. But I think a really great opportunity is working in environments that do have opportunities for people. So I think that's great that y'all have had experiences where you could really explore and get to know what you enjoy doing and what you feel like you're good at doing. So fantastic. That's amazing. So obviously, there's always challenges along the way in anybody's career, no matter what stage of your career that you're at. I would love to understand a little bit more about some of those challenges that you've faced while working in manufacturing as a woman. Any notable stories? And Jessica, feel free to jump in here first if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, some of my challenges, it kind of hits with anyone, right? Anytime you're starting out, like I said, my dad was manufacturing. I work through my career and hit, let's say, work challenges. How do you work with people? How do you handle diversification? How do you conflict resolution? How can you have some of these conversations, let's say at my entry level, right? Finding people who are in similar situations as you, or who are maybe like one level above that have already gone through that, is a really great way to start, right? Because it's like if you're in the middle and this is your first time dealing with some of this, you may not know what to do, and there's only so many resources you can reach out there. So in that network that you're building, call it a mentor, call it someone, but in your network, making sure that you have some of those different levels of people, as well as, someone in a similar position as you, where you can reach out and be like, oh man, like this is something I'm struggling with at work. How did you handle this? And just kind of having someone you can bounce back and forth with. And this has really helped me as I moved out, when I became a first manager, managing people, and different circumstances come up there. And every person is so unique. And being able to talk to people about different management styles, different personalities, how do you handle those different personalities, and what are tools and tricks? This also helped me, as I started making more money, I didn't know what to do with it, and just, yeah, it's something really funny if you think about it, but it's like finances. If your family's never been in investing, or if they've never hit a certain threshold and the tax limits, who can you talk to about that? There's, I naturally, you want to go to parents or family, but if they've never been in that situation, they don't know how to answer that. So again, like finding people, if you get into finances, finding a good financial advisor that can advise you on that. There's a book I read, The Richest Man on Babylon, and I laugh about that because it talks about finding people who are experienced in that area. If you're going to go buy jewelry, you're not going to go to the butcher for advice, So if you want financial advice, go to someone who actually knows finances in some cases, because they may give you the more accurate data for someone that's not their thing. So that's kind of something I've always thought of, both in manufacturing. I mean, this could be on machines, on education, like I said, on finance, like working moms. That's another thing, just people who are in those similar challenges. I think that's helped me the most through my career, is building that into my network and reaching out to them for advice and help and things like that.
I love that. Actually, I think, there's this idea of a personal board of directors, right? And as you kind of move through your career, is like assembling these group of people that you go to for advice. And I was thinking, how do people get started with that? Like, it's not super easy. There's probably folks out there being like, oh, that sounds really great, but like, how do I bump into these people, right? And so I think that's where, organizations like Women in Manufacturing come in, right? And like figuring out how do you like find your tribe, and like getting out there and networking. And those organizations are just fantastic. And almost, in some respects, you need a good mix on this advisory committee for yourself, of folks internal to the company that kind of understand for real, like the nuances and the struggles and the culture of what's happening in the business, but also this like outside perspective that's just this 10,000-foot view. Or it's often like really revealing, like when you start to talk to them and they're like, huh, like why would you do it that way? And you're like, oh, like, great question. Like, let me go back and kind of dig a little bit further. And so I love kind of pulling on that larger network to help boost you up and get you where you need to go.
Yeah, and I don't think people think a lot about like what resources are available through the company, right? Like we have HR, we
True.
have so many benefits. Like even my company, like I found out we have a benefit, they help pay for your Peloton membership. You know, yes, like it's as, if those of you that have companies or you're helping advocate people coming in, I help them understand what benefits are available through the company, whether it's mental, whether it's financial. Like our military has an entire financial team that helps you set up budgets and spending. Like it's amazing what they do. So I think that's another thing, communicating what resources are in the company, helping people set up time to take advantage of those resources, having that point of contact. So those may be really easy ones that are already free and available for you through your company. Education's another one. I think a lot of people, like our company does student loan payments. So if you're on board, instead of paying for school, they pay a portion toward your student loans. That's something I was having a conversation with someone they didn't even know existed.
Incredible.
I've had an Orca pass to help with your bus or light railing and stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of resources within your company that we don't do a good job of communicating and sharing to people as well to help in manufacturing, like that.
Love that. Great examples.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. Yeah, I think again, for me personally, in my experience earlier in my career, having my mentors have been incredible. I have one that always says, run to trouble, run to trouble. If something,
Love it.
don't run away from it, run towards the fire. And let's, don't be afraid to put the fire out and just haul towards it.
Yeah.
So I always tell
Great
myself that
advice.
when I'm
Yeah.
terrified to do something, because once you do
That's
something
where opportunity
scary,
lies. Yeah, for sure.
exactly. That's
Yeah, and
Very
I feel
exactly.
cool.
like if you have all those pieces we talked about, like having people to talk to, having the personal board of director like Sheila talk to, it doesn't matter what you kind of face. Like that's the thing. Like I don't want to point on that there aren't issues in manufacturing we go through, but it's really what are you doing proactively to set up in order to handle anything you go against in manufacturing. I think that's really we need to turn the tables on, yes, there are these problems, but what are you setting up to help solve it, not just talk about all of the problems. We want to find a solution for that.
Right. I think being solution oriented, huge. Okay, next really great question. So, Jessica, you briefly mentioned your experience in the military. Talk about woman in a man's world. That to me comes top of mind. So, first of all, as Sheila mentioned, thanks again for your service. Please tell us a little bit about your work in the military and how those experiences really have helped you in your career.
Oh man, yes. As I mentioned, I'm a civil engineer officer. I came into the military older, so it's definitely been an interesting experience with me, working with different age groups, different people around the world. And what was really funny is this isn't my first time kind of being the only female around. Like, luckily, we have a few of us, but it's definitely a minority in the military, especially on the engineering side. But I also like kind of two other things I ran into when I was younger. My dad put me in Taekwondo. So I actually had my first degree black belt really early. And oftentimes, like, I was the only female that was competing, especially in like the fighting portion of it. And then I remember getting to, I think it was middle school, and I went to my dad, and the football team needed a kicker, and I was a soccer player. And I came home one day and I was like, Dad, I want to play football. And he sat me down and he had me, for those of you that know, he had me watch that movie G.I. Jane with Demi Moore, which was about the first female going through Navy SEALs. So we get through the whole movie, and at the end, he's like, okay, what did you learn? And I was like, oh, I'm gonna join the military. Like, so he's just like, just go. Like just and I was like, I don't like water. I don't think I want to be a Navy SEAL, but a pilot, like, ooh, that would be a good one.
That would be cool.
So,
Yeah.
so it was really funny. I never saw it as like, okay, I'm the only female here. Like, boys, keep up, like, um, and I think like even playing football, I think the worst thing that can someone do, and like these are, some of the things I found was like, especially in football, it's a very physical sport. We were doing like one-on-ones, and I go up against my friend that's like 6 foot 240, and the coach is like, well, hold on, maybe you want to sit out on this one. And I think I could take like just getting the crap kicked out of me. I could not take someone stepping in and saying you can't do that. That was
Mm.
like like people don't think they're thinking that they're trying to do you a favor, but in that moment you don't think I can do it. And for me, I get mad. Like I get mad, I'm gonna go try to hit twice as hard. But for other people, that's a really big just hit internally, right? Like, wow, they don't really believe in me when they think they're doing something nice. So I think one thing, like I said, just if you are kind of in this world, advocating and sticking up for yourself that, no, coach, I got this. And in this case, I challenged him and I was like, yeah, he's a big boy. Like, I know I can't go shoulder to shoulder, but Sheila and I have this engineering brain. So I'm sitting here like, I can't go up there, but I can wrap my arms up and take his legs out, knock him down here, because that's how physics works. So, and this goes back to like in this situation, thinking smarter and not harder. So even though I physically can't go against some of these big guys, you can find a smarter way around the solution so
Yeah.
but I think the worst thing you can do is tell someone in that situation, oh, you might want to sit out on this one or don't do that. And a lot of times women will take that and be like, okay, maybe I should. We need to teach them that that's not okay sometimes. Well, at
Yeah.
really any time, right? Saying, hey, you know what? If I'm comfortable and I want to get in here and get hit, let me. Like,
Yeah.
um, and I mean, this is looking at manufacturing and some of these other examples. That's the same thing there too, right? Like, let them try it once and see how they do it. Give them the opportunities to that maybe a traditional male might have done. Maybe a female can do it a different way, and that's where like the really cool idea of diversity comes in when you bring someone that has different strengths in. What can that solution now be? And you didn't have that situation with how you were using it before. So that's something I really like. And I tell people, like, military wise, if you don't know what to do with your kids, military pays for school and it teaches you how to keep stuff clean. So don't ever knock this one out.
I
It's a
love it.
very structured, the expectations are very high. It's a really cool opportunity a lot of people don't think about. Even in the Guard, we still have full-time jobs. So a lot of people don't think about, oh, military is 100% active duty. No, our Guard units are here part-time. We work obviously a real job, but we work a civilian job Monday through Friday. And then we're supporting, the other side of it when needed. So there's just so many opportunities out there. I talk to junior ROTC kids about going into engineering and the engineering opportunities and stuff in the military. Like, we have cyber and intelligence. Like, that's been a big push for military. So we have a bunch of cyber warfare guys up at our Guard unit. There's just so many
So
opportunities now
cool.
that people like, they don't even think about that in the military. They're very like, oh, you're up front here. And it's like, no, this is very different. And guess what? They pay for school.
Yeah. That's
So don't knock
incredible
it out. But no, no,
opportunity.
I've loved it. I definitely encourage it for anyone out there to get involved, see what opportunities are, and support your service people. I mean, it's a tough job juggling two jobs. Sometimes we're gone. And again, that's just another challenge. So having that group that, I like, hey, if I deploy for 2 months, how do you guys handle that? What do you do to help your families? And just employers, that's another benefit. My employer, like, differential pay, they give me someone that's like my main point of contact. They do stuff to help your family out. I mean, that's something with us recognizing with anyone in a situation, what can you do to make it easier on them, because it's not easy when they're gone. So I just think there's a lot of opportunities there on the benefit side too. But no, I
Yeah.
love it. They keep me busy. It's something new all the time.
I think that's a really cool example, and the way that you've shown up, throughout your entire career and your life, and how that continues to make a difference. I think, in parallel, and advice that I would give and received is what you kind of boiled down is take a seat at the table, right? And like, there was a specific moment in my career where I'll name names because I don't know, maybe there's probably nobody watching, but I was at Whirlpool and I just was not happy there, right? And I was like, this is not going the way that I want. And it was pretty early on. And I just got in my mind, like, I'm going to leave anyway, because of that, like, I'm going to take a seat at the table and I'm going to give my opinion because I really don't care. Like, I'm looking for another job. In the moment that I like let go of my own baggage of like, ooh, I might say something dumb, or I might say something career limiting because I was leaving anyway, I didn't care. Like, literally, it was like a 90-degree or 180-degree turn, and my career just started like skyrocketing. They're like, oh, like, you have something to say and it's really smart, and you're like, oh, okay, like, I'll say more. And so, kind of, that the biggest barrier was just myself, and letting go of that, and taking that seat at the table and having an opinion, would be the biggest advice that I have.
Yeah, I love that. That's such great advice. So kind of touching on barriers, Jessica, for the question for you, and obviously would love your thoughts on that too, Sheila, but in your experience, what do you feel are some common barriers preventing women from really advancing in leadership roles? And how do you think these can be addressed? I feel like Sheila kind of teed us up perfectly for that question.
Yes, you did. I think that confidence and communication is the biggest barrier I see. I'd say when we look at barriers, there are two different. There's the person and then there's the process. So the first one is you as a person, how are you creating the barrier? Are you not asking for a seat at the table? I remember having a conversation with a female who was very interested in management, and she was like, and I was like, okay, well, what are you doing about it? She's like, what do you mean? I was like, have you told your manager? Have you talked about this in your career development? What you want as both a short-term and a long-term goal, and what, they could do to help get you there. And I remember giving her some ideas that was like, why don't you go to your manager and say, hey, the next time you're on vacation, can I fill in for you? Could I be a temp manager? Could I fill in for this? If someone's gone, maybe on paternity or maternity leave, is that an opportunity for me to step in? And I laughed because their HR rep was like, oh man, we don't have a process quite for that. Like
Right.
almost like a waiting list, right? So they're not quite managers, but what process could we put in place for people who may be interested in that next step, or maybe I want to run this machine instead of this one? Like, what type of list do you have that you can document who's interested in this opportunity, so when something comes up, oh, I can go back to this list, and so and so and so and so said they're interested in it. Because oftentimes if you don't speak up, you're going to miss out on that. They're gonna, oh, let's have the team lead do it or something like that, and you're maybe more the quieter one over here. We really got to figure out what mechanisms we can get put in place to have everyone be able to speak, and again, that's just learning those different personality types and advocating for that, whether you're a peer or the manager, right? Even as a peer, if someone's interested in that, be like, hey, so and so would be a great option, an option for this. You should really do that. So definitely kind of have talk with your peers, support each other in some of these opportunities. That speaking up. We talked about that support network, again, communicating out to that, having them as there's a few jobs that I've kind of taken on, and I mean, it's overwhelming. It's, I'm freaking out. I don't think I can do it. Like we're not all great every day. So there are some of those days where, I'm a total words of affirmation person. I need someone to tell me good job sometimes. Or, I like that's a little motivating to me. And then, telling people that what helps you in some of those areas, helps me get over my barriers, right? Because then that's a mental barrier for me, and how do I block that personally? And then when we kind of talk about the process of the barrier, I mean, that you need to do a little more there, right? So let's say, I don't have proper training to get from this level to this level. That's where, like, you have your HR, you have your manager. I love telling people, use your annual performances as a way to document that. A lot of people miss that. WIM is a really big one where I'm like, hey, if you want to do something for WIM, put it in your performance management. Like if you want to go to summit, you want to go to conferences, you want to go to these trainings and professional developments, putting that and showing how it can help you grow skills for your company, and putting that into the plan with your manager is a great way to start that. It's documented, you're measuring it, and a lot of times they're really supportive about that kind of stuff. So that's another thing to think about, is bringing that into your development planning and your strategy with your manager and at your company.
Oh, that's great advice. I love the thought on, kind of yourself and then the process. For me, I like to think about like finding those opportunities. And then if you think about like, okay, how do I, as an employee looking for an opportunity, like convince somebody to like take a chance on me? And I always put together kind of this like 4x4 matrix with kind of risk on the y-axis and then importance on the x-axis. And so you can imagine you've got 4 quadrants there, and you can kind of plot out different projects, right? And so if you've got something that's like really low risk for the company and really high importance, like that's a really nice target to try to go after for like an opportunity. But say you're like a little bit earlier and you've got something that's like low risk, low importance, you're like, let me prove it to you and just like knock this thing out. Like the likelihood that you're going to get a stretch assignment that's like high risk, high importance is risky for you and for the business. And so kind of like plotting it out and really choosing your opportunities is a good way to kind of like be intentional, right? Like don't let your career happen to you, but like you have choice and like control your career and be really intentional about what additional opportunities and projects you take on and like what your thought process is on how that benefits both you and the business.
That's
Yeah, and
awesome.
I think Sheila and I talked about this before, was kind of looking at the other side when you're looking for someone to kind of step into a leadership role. Women are the first people to look at a big giant list and say, out of those 15, I only have 10. I'm not, I'm not qualified for that job. We gotta break that. Like it's hard. Like the hardest thing I've had people to do is send a woman and say, hey, write something about yourself. Like I do these board spotlights and stuff like that. And it's like, I want you to write a couple of sentences about yourself and how great you are. Do they struggle with it? They
I
struggle so
know,
hard.
right?
And
It's so hard.
I mean, these women are amazing and they've done so many amazing things. And so I think, when you're opening up those opportunities and you're putting, maybe out, here's a job role, here's an opportunity. Remember that women look at that and they try to check everything.
Even now,
So
like it's so hard. Even
yeah,
now, like
sometimes simplifying that and maybe not making it a requirement, but these are things that you would do in the role. Like these are things that it just wording it a different way sometimes it is a little easier for most female to apply for those jobs. And then some of them just need a nudge too. Like I said, that's going back to that support network of, yeah, like you can do that. You do that every day. You're fine. Like apply for it.
yeah. It's interesting. You were taking the role of like, the company kind of posting the role and like being thoughtful on the language. Like I was thinking of what you were saying about, like yourself and how we tend to have this kind of imposter syndrome a little bit and like getting over that. Like I just came back I played lacrosse in college and we had a reunion. And so we're catching up with all these people I haven't seen in 20 plus years. And they're like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I work in software. I like run a software company. And then my friend is like, she's the friggin' CEO. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of, they're like, would you just say that? And like there's this weird kind of, I don't know, like you don't want to put yourself out there in that way. But then in reality, you're like, no, like I need to, like, yes, like,
It feels like bragging, right? It feels like I'm
yes.
bragging when I say I'm successful and yeah, I'm a badass and this is what I've done.
Absolutely. I think we need a little bit more of that. And those friends to be like, get like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I love that. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can attest, Sheila, you are a badass CEO too. So anyway, so just kind of moving on, just for time's sake, just keep an eye on the clock. This one is a really great question for you in particular, Jessica. So how does digital transformation impact gender equality in the manufacturing industry? And what steps do you think companies can take really to ensure inclusivity in their digital initiatives?
This is definitely something. Digital transformation opens up opportunities to break some of those barriers. Two things like right that comes to mind is the very first one. You have to digitize all your content. Okay, we can't pull the people collaboratively. We can't do hybrid. We can't have flexible working situations unless it is digitized. If you have stuff on paper, you've automatically limited everything. People have to be in that location in order to get the data, to review the data. So first things first, just digitize your stuff. Step one. And then that really opens up, it allowed us to do stuff for COVID. We can now work from home. We can now do hybrid stuff. Um, any mom you talk to working from home and hybrid, it is amazing. It is so hard to try to figure out how to do before school care and after school care. And there's a snow day. What the heck do I do now? And it's, oh, they're 2 hours late. Oh, no, they might be 4 hours late. Like, oh man, like that having the ability for that flexible work schedule now opens it up to working mothers who may not have thought about a career before, right? First things first. The second one I think of is we've had so many advancements in robotics and different types of machinery and equipment, and positions that would traditionally have a male role due to the physical requirements of, we're able to bring some women into those roles. Like I was in the Amazon Robotics Center, and there's a part of the process where you have to pick up this really heavy thing and move it, and I'm looking over there, and this is the tiniest petite woman I've ever seen doing this job because she has a robotic arm that she's controlling that goes through, picks it up, and moves it for her. 5, 10 years ago, that might not have been a tiny petite woman doing that role because you need to physically lift these boxes and move them. But seeing the support from the company to put something in that area that now we can hire anyone for, um, that's exciting. Like it's finding ways where traditionally you needed a certain type of person physically. We've now broken that by bringing in more ergonomic ways, by bringing in some of these robotics, by finding some of these machines that make that easier. I think those are two areas that we're really opening up.
That's interesting. We've gotten feedback on TeamSense. So TeamSense, automates the employee call offline, and then doing so establishes this digital connection. But about call off specifically, all of the gender stereotypes on like what is an excused absence, and like when people are leaving a voicemail with their supervisor, and like how they code that absence has incredible impact on that employee's ability, an hourly worker, their tenure, right? And so kind of removing the bias, which is what TeamSense does, and allows the employees to choose, like, no, like I'm going to take, my kid is sick, and so I've got a family leave, versus, I'm personally sick, versus having to tell my supervisor, and my supervisor are feeling judgmental of like, how sick is your kid? Like, why can't you make it in? And just kind of removing all of that is a nice way as well to kind of, continue to progress on the gender stereotypes, and removing them in the workplace.
Yeah, if your kid has braces, orthodontics are only open during the day. Like you can't even get an appointment after 3.
Right? All the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think a lot about I don't know if y'all have this feeling as a woman, as a person. I feel this need to over explain and overcompensate for something and not just be direct and to the point. And so if I have the ability to circumvent that, I will definitely take it because again, I don't want to have to explain the fact that well, I'm not there because my grandfather died and I'm upset and I'm sad or right. So I think
Yeah.
that's huge.
And some of
Mhm.
those, I mean, that's just good managers, and that's like with my managers, you never know what someone's going through. Even as a peer, we
100%.
never know what someone's going through. So I always tell someone like, if you need a minute, if you need, like, I'm not going to ask you questions. Go do it. I trust you enough that, you're a good hard worker, and there's a reason you need to take care of. Go take care of it. We'll find, and that's just us as leaders, right? How are we setting up the work environment, and how are we changing culture to make that okay? Like you just said, like feel like you have to overcompensate. No one should ever feel that way. Like if you need to go take care of something, you should feel comfortable enough to come to me and say, Jessica, I gotta go take care of this. I'll be back in an hour, or I'm gonna be late tomorrow. Go do it. I know you're gonna catch up your stuff. I will ask, okay, who's gonna fill in for you while you're gone, maybe? That's a good question. But then this goes back to, is your team cross trained to fill in some of those areas? Do
100%.
you have a backup? Again, that's a whole nother conversation we can talk about for hours. But
Yeah.
good management, a good working just culture to support some of those topics, I think is really important too.
Yeah, agreed. So y'all both kind of touched a little bit on this. So Sheila, you have a young family. You're leading a tech startup. You're the CEO of a tech startup, by the way. Um, Jessica, you are a senior manager at PwC and you work in the military. You're also a mom. Do you feel that there is more pressure in today's culture for women really to do it all?
Oh yeah, for sure. But there was a book. It's called The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath that
Love that
like
book.
really like transformed like the way that I think about like not only running the business, like it's largely a business related book, but actually how I parent. And I'll give like the 10,000 foot view is that um, when folks look back on time, they tend to remember like these peaks or these like valleys. And so if you think about like my parenting strategy is how do I kind of manufacture these peaks and eliminate some of the valleys. And so a really good example is they followed folks around Disney World for a while. And what they learned was like 80% of your time at Disney World is spent with crying kids in line, in the humidity, in the hot, 90-degree weather. But then there's these manufactured moments of like you with your family, like looking at the castle and like the fireworks going off, or like your kid meeting Mickey Mouse. And so when people look back at their time at Disney, like they tend to forget like how terrible that line experience was, even though that was 85% of their time, if not more, and remember like these peaks and like these manufactured peaks. And so what I've done is like, oh, like interesting, like most likely like our 85% of my children's childhood is like me like working, but like how do I manufacture these peaks so that when they look back they're like, oh my god, like we did this and we did this and we did that. And so I'm very, very thoughtful and intentional about those peaks with my family, and then also with our TeamSense team and our business and our customers. So it's a pretty transformational book for me.
I had to write that one down. I don't think I've read that one yet. But yeah, mine's very similar to Sheila. And I think I would say traditional female personality, we see everything that needs to be done. It's, oh man, like we know the trash needs to go out, like there's chores, the kids need to get, like, we see everything. And we are very caring, nurturing people, and we want to help everybody, right? So that instantly puts everything on our shoulders. So I think by far, like, we are the superheroes. But what we are not good at, that what can help us with this is we're not good at delegating. We're not good at, I do a whole talk on how to automate the household, right? So how can you bring in technology to the household to help me to keep people on track? Like, my daughter uses Alexa for scheduling. We have a shared Google Calendar, so we know who needs to be where. If it's not on the calendar, you don't get to go, adult or child. It's just how it works. Whoever puts it on the calendar and communicates it is number one. If you didn't, sorry, you can't go. Just some things like that that help us out. So like automating, delegating what you can. Your kids are not helpless. This is a conversation I love having with people. They're like, well, I have a toddler. Your toddler can pick up their toys. You can start early teaching your kid, oh, when we're done playing with stuff. And, I mean, this gets in like lean manufacturing. Do it at home. 5S at home. Like, this is the spot where all the toys go. When you're done cleaning up, we're going to stop. We're going to pick up, and we're going to put, no FOD behind kind of thing, right? We're going to pick up everything and we're going to put it in the box. Just starting out with simple chores and cleanups and routines, those can really help out that working career mom. And then having open communication, I think, is very important. My daughter's in high school. I'm juggling it all right now. But I go to her and I say, I can't make everything. Out of what you have, what is the most important that I'm at? So this is very, like Sheila, quality over quantity. You will not make every event. You won't be there for everything, even though we want to. But going to your kids and saying, what is the most important thing you want me at? And I will try everything in my power to be at that one. I might not can make the other ones, but that's the one I'm going to try to prioritize or block out on my calendar. And they see that you've now put them as a priority, and they're not going to think about the ones you didn't make. They're going to think about the one, I told mom to make this and she was there and she made that happen. That's what they're going to remember. So I think that quality over quantity, teaching your kids how to communicate that prioritization is something that's really going to help both them now, you now, and them later on in life.
Yeah,
The other thing you said was delegate. Like, don't be afraid to delegate, right? Like,
yeah.
if you can afford to have a cleaner, like have a cleaner. Like you don't need to be sad about it, right? Like get some of that time back.
Yeah.
Delegation is so important.
That was the
Yeah.
first thing I did when I first took my first director manager was hire a cleaner that comes every other week and landscaping because especially like I was traveling internationally. I'm gone Monday through Friday. I get back Friday. I'm home for 48 hours. Do you think I want to go pull weeds and clean toilets? Like the
No, you
the
gotta go make
priority
moments, right?
yes, the priority there for me was I want to spend that time with my kids. So how can you automate to improve the quality of life? It's okay to do that. You don't have to do everything.
100%.
Yeah, I totally could not agree more. Could not agree more. I think it's great when you have a really supportive partner and family too. That makes such a huge difference, for
It's a
sure.
village.
But so
And don't
just
be afraid
taking,
to ask for that help. That's another thing I see.
yeah,
Like I fly out today and my fiance is busy, so my sister has to pick up my daughter today. And then we were juggling dental appointments and stuff tomorrow. So, asking my sister, my mom, like a friend, hey, can you grab my daughter? Can can she carpool with someone for a day or two because I have something going on? That's okay. Like that whole it takes a village, it sometimes does take a village, but you also have to ask that village to fill in when you're juggling a lot. So, that's hard for people, especially women, to ask for help. Get over that.
yeah, get over it. I love that. So just in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and start hopping some of the questions that came through. One of these, it sounds like somebody heard you mention women in manufacturing. So what opportunities are there to get involved with WIM? Can you tell us a little bit maybe about your involvement with WIM? Yeah, it sounds like I know it sounds like a great organization. I know Sheila, you're involved with it too. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, short thing, Women in Manufacturing, they're a national organization. I think we're up to like 30 something chapters across the US. Basically, they filled that gap where's an organization that working women that in manufacturing can get together and learn and support and inspire each other and talk about those challenges. I'm the chair for Washington State, so if any of you guys are in this state, that falls definitely under my bucket. We have region leads. We put on professional develop events. We do lots of manufacturing tours. And when I say women in manufacturing, women and men can come to the events. It's open to everybody. Manufacturing is not just someone that works on the floor. HR supports manufacturing, quality, engineers, your finance people support. So it's not just I work on the manufacturing floor. It's all the organizations that help our manufacturing industry. So don't think if you're in IT or something like that, you can't go to those events. It's open for everyone. But it's been a really great way for me. We talked about creating that networking, finding people like you and people that support and opportunities. It's been fantastic. So feel free to reach out to me or any of, my board or take a look at the WIM website.
Yeah,
That's
women's been phenomenal. It's like you walk in and you're like, these are my people, right? Like they understand. And it takes a special person to be in this particular industry. And so like you tend to have a lot of those personalities that gel really, really well together. The one thing that I've really appreciated, at least the way that you run the Washington chapter, Jess, is that we have activities. So it's not like this awkward, like, oh, hey, I'm going to put my name tag on. Like we went for Christmas and we went to like a glass blowing studio and made ornaments, right? And then you've made knives before. And so like there's something else going on that allows you to kind of have a conversation and just makes it so easy. And so it's definitely one of my favorite organizations. And then the other really cool thing that you guys do, which I already talked about as being like my favorite, is the plant tours, right? Like where you go in and you see how this stuff is made. You're like, this is fascinating. Like it's so cool. Like we were in Boeing a couple weeks ago and Quick Lock and a bunch of other really cool companies. We're like, man, I had no idea. And so general public doesn't get to go see how things are made. And so it's a really cool opportunity.
That's awesome. So we're kind of a little bit over time. We'll add one more question. If you can stay, great. If not, then again, this is recorded. So if you do have to hop, no problem. We talked a little bit about imposter syndrome. I know, Sheila, you mentioned it. What are some tools in your toolkit that you utilize to overcome imposter syndrome, whether you have feelings that pop up? I know this happens to everybody in their career at every stage. It's not just something that happens to people that are young in their career. What are some ways that you've overcome feelings of imposter syndrome?
Oh man, for me, I think the biggest thing I think that has helped is talking about it. I see, traditionally what we see is everyone's success stories. We see everyone doing well. We see people losing weight. We see people getting promotions. We see all the achievements, but we never see people's failures. Like I've never seen anyone's post something says, "Man, I failed flat on my butt." Feel like you'll never see them post that. And I remember talking with a bunch of college students. I had a presentation and I showed them, if you look over here, you see all my successes, but what you don't see is my failures. And it was, I have 3 degrees. What you didn't see was I was working, I was a mom, and I was doing it all, all at the same time. So the photos of, I think there was a photo of like me on my bed with like all my homework and stuff spread out, and my daughter sitting on the end of the bed watching cartoons. Just that
Yeah.
there is working 3:30 in the morning when I was running manufacturing. I was going to school at night. Like I would fall asleep everywhere. Like, and it looked like it was like dead asleep, sitting straight up in a chair at home. And my family seeing that, like, what are you so tired for? And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Mhm.
I've failed classes before. I've gotten bad grades on exams. I've had bad days. Like just talking about that and sharing it and telling other people that, we all deal with it, I think is the first thing. The second is what can you do to get over that, right? That a lot of imposter syndrome is very much in yourself. I have days I'm totally overwhelmed. I just break down and cry. Ask my fiance. I come home. I need the words. I need comforting. I sometimes I need to be alone. Like I'm gonna go do a really hard workout. I'm gonna beat this out of me. That's how I found my way around this sometimes. Is I'm just gonna go just kill myself physically on a good workout, and then I'm gonna get done and I'm gonna be like, all right, let's do this. Like that's something I found that works for me. But finding what helps you get out of that rut, whether it's talking to someone, whether it's going to someone and saying, I need to hear the words, whether it's doing yoga, having quiet time, doing a hard workout, like a lot of that barrier is you as an individual. So find a way to break it. Um, there is not it's not black and white. There's going to be different things for each person. Talk to people about what they do, how they get over it, and try a few things. Because at the end of the day, I mean, everyone here is good enough. Some of us may have to work harder, we may have to study harder. That's okay because that means we're challenging ourselves, right? If it was easy, everyone would do it. That's what everyone says, right? So if it is hard and you're going crazy, and that just means you're doing something right. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Is like that is in yourself, and not everyone gets motivated in the same way. Like I, was an athlete, and so in particular, I was a goalkeeper. And as a goalkeeper, you let the ball in. Like you can't sit there and like dwell on that one because the next one's like flying at your face, and like you better get that one and don't make the same mistake twice. And so, I could get similar into these ruts where you're just feeling like so overwhelmed, and you're like, okay, like what's that next ball, what's that next play, like what is, and just like break down the problem to be much smaller, like what is the next best move, and not try to like boil the ocean, just like try to get the next step right. Is how I personally overcome it.
Yeah. I like breaking that up into steps. And I work with my daughter. It's okay to say you need a minute too. I think that's what a lot, like if you are hitting that point, excusing yourself and taking a minute is okay.
100%.
Like,
Yeah.
all right, hey, go take a minute, grab a coffee, and then come back. Like teaching the next generation how to handle that. And even some people that we have that you see might need that. Yeah, it's you can get over it.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for a walk. Go get a coffee. Go kill yourself in a workout. I love all of these things. I do all the same. Well, great. Well, this has been so fantastic, Jessica and Sheila. We can't thank you both enough for participating in this webinar. Some really great questions that came through too, so thank you to those that participated. Wanted to quickly share, as always, we do these webinars on Tuesdays. Next week, we have another amazing female HR manager joining us, Emily Cockler. Super excited to have her join us. She's going to share a little bit more about her journey as an HR manager and how she implemented TeamSense. So talk about taking things to the next digital age. She's a great representation of that. So Rob, our head of sales at TeamSense, will be hosting that. So excited to have her join. we really appreciate, again, you joining us. If you want to learn more about TeamSense or if you want to participate in more webinars, we will have more webinars just like this with awesome people like Jessica joining us. So you can always, again, come to teamsense.com/webinars. If you want to take a look at how our product works, obviously you can schedule a demo with us as well. But that really wraps up our time. And man, I just feel so inspired. I love meeting with fellow female coworkers who can just, I love how people can empower one another. So I really appreciate the time and hope to see you again soon, Jessica. We'll have to, like I joked when we were practicing this webinar, I was like, this probably could be a 5-hour conversation. So
With a couple glasses of wine, no
Yeah.
problem.
with some wine,
Yes,
some
thank
beer.
you.
Yeah. And
for
everyone feel
joining
free
us.
to connect with Sheila and me on LinkedIn, reach
Yes,
out to
thank you.
us. I mean, we're always available to help anybody else out.
Yes,
100%.
absolutely. If you'd like to connect with Sheila and Jessica, you can find them on LinkedIn. Again, Jessica Kinman, Sheila Stafford, both on LinkedIn. So appreciate y'all's time and safe travels to you, Jessica. I know you're on your way across the state or across the
Yeah.
nation. So
It
wow, big
never
trip.
ends.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
We'll see you
everyone.
next webinar. Y'all take care.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.